and welcome to Guidelines for Practitioner when discussing early needs. We are going to go through some do's and don'ts. Let's get started. 10 guidelines to follow. These are your 10 do's that we're going to be going through. Establish a positive relationship with your parents. This is the number one thing. This is your launching point. This is the foundation that everything is based on. Having a positive relationship with the parents already pre-established before jumping into anything that could be potentially emotionally charged will be helpful. You'll have an understanding of where they're coming from as parents, what their background is, what their culture is, as well as their communication style. Some parents are going to be straight and to the point. Other parents, you're going to need to be a little bit slower and break things down for them in smaller bite-sized pieces. Understanding that and knowing that about each individual parent is very helpful. Be non-judgmental, 100% respectful all the time, and non-judgmental, especially in language selection. Being certain that we communicate in a way that is respectful and professional and kind without making any assumptions about what is happening at home or in the parent's life or how they may even see a particular situation. It's really important that we take all of the judgment aside and come at it with a beginner's mind. Use clear and simple language, not a lot of words. When we say a lot of words to parents, that can actually overwhelm them and they may not be able to just sit with the information. Being very factual and very simple in our language selection and avoiding technical jargon, complex terminology, or pedagogy, or anything that is deep in the weeds of any particular situation will allow parents to focus on just the facts and taking in as little information as possible. When talking to parents about children who have special needs, they may already be emotionally sensitive because it's very important to them, and sometimes it's very difficult to hear that their children might be atypical. So they're already going to be in a heightened emotional state, so they may not be able to hear as clearly. So keeping the language very simple is very helpful to them. Next we have provide information and resources. This is number 4. Providing information to the parents can help them better understand their child's needs and supporting them. And these types of things can be links to websites, different blogs that you might have come across on a particular diagnosis. It can also be books that you've read, articles that you've found helpful, anything that supports them in understanding their child and feeling comfortable with their child and meeting their child's needs is always appreciated. And I always offer it as, I came across this and I found it interesting, you might also too. Not giving it and saying, here, you need to read this because this is what's best for your child. I came across this and I'm offering it to you in case you would like to use it. Listen to the parent's perspective. Parents are the expert in their child because an expert is a person who has the most experience. A parent has known their child since the minute they came into this world. That means that they are the expert in their child. And so being able to listen to their perspective on the child and then also ask open-ended questions. What do you think? How do you handle? What is your strategy for this? And even it's something as simple as, how do you feel? What do you think? And hearing that gives you insight into their thought process so you can better meet their needs as well as the needs of the child. Be open and honest. It's important to be honest about your concerns when discussing special needs with parents and letting them know that you're coming at this as a way of support for their child and being very clear that you want what's best for the child and that you need help or support because your bag of tricks is only so big. And this also goes back to sharing observations and concerns without judgment. I have observed this, and going back to evidence-based information on why your observation is valid. Collaborate on goals and strategies. This goes back to that open communication with parents and asking for their opinion and their feedback about what's happening at home, and seeing if you can provide consistency in your classroom by implementing those strategies at home, because everybody's working together to get the child to the same place, and that is to develop to the best of their ability. And having an individualized plan with a child in consideration of their strengths and weaknesses and needs, the only way to get that is to get as much information from all the people who have interactions with this child as possible. The parents are the expert in their child. They're going to have a lot of information to offer to you. And if a parent has read something and they say, oh, I read this really great article, or I read this really great book, read that. Let them know that the communication is a two-way street, that you are sharing with them information, and what they have to share with you is very important. And talk about the goals at home may be different than the goals in the classroom. You can say, in the classroom, we're working on this goal, and this is how we're going to accomplish that. At home, the goals may be different, and you can ask, how can I support you here in a day-to-day inside the classroom to meet those goals at home? And so that you're both on the same page. Also, if you have too many goals that are dissimilar, it can be a little overwhelming to the child, and he's not going to know where to go. So making sure that you have those in a collaborative way and going to the same place will also be helpful to the child. Respect cultural differences. Respecting cultural differences is important because it helps you know where the child is coming from. It also helps set up expectations. Different cultures have different expectations of children. Understanding that you may come from a different background than your parents will help you see things from a different perspective. It also opens up your worldview, and you will grow as a practitioner when you can understand the culture of the people that are within your community. My favorite saying when it comes to respecting cultural differences is, I don't know more, I don't know better, I know different. And my knowing different comes from my experiences, and their knowing difference comes from their experiences, and that makes them invaluable to you, because it is about us meeting their needs, not parents and children meeting our needs. Being flexible and patient, number 9. This is in collaboration with parents, but also in watching the evolution of the child and the growth of the child and the parents as they're navigating their way through this. Remembering that children wake up every day in a new body, and so they may not be in the same place. They may have gone backwards. They may be jumping forwards, and keeping your approach flexible allows for you to accommodate and meeting the child each day where that child is at. And also with parents, they have an emotional investment in their child. They may be uncomfortable with any diagnostic label that their child receives. And being patient with them in coming to terms and understanding and learning. They are not early years professionals. They don't have years and years of experience. They don't have the book learning that we have, possibly. So that means they're going to be on a learning curve that you might have already gone over. So allowing parents and the children to come along at their own pace and providing a supportive environment goes a long way in being successful and helping parents navigate this road. Follow up regularly. Communicate, communicate, and communicate. This is almost as important as establishing that relationship at the very beginning, number 1. Number 10 is to follow up regularly. And it can be planning to meet every month, every 6 weeks. It can be a regular phone call. And it can be a weekly check-in saying, this is what I've observed this week. That can be very helpful if you have a child that has behavior challenges and you can see the progress from week to week to week. If you're keeping track of it in a written way, you can then also share that with them at the end and say, this is what I have observed over this course of time. Because sometimes day to day, it doesn't feel like any improvement is being made. But then when you go back and finding out where they've started, they've really come a long way in that. And also parents might have an expectation of things happening quicker than they can actually happen. So when you have regular follow-up, you're having continual conversation with them, and they get little pieces of information at a time, which also helps them be patient and be aware of what's happening. 6 things not to do. These are the things that we don't intentionally do. There's never any malicious intent in this. So these are all just reminders of best practices, of things to step around and away from. We talked about this already. Number 1, making assumptions and judgments. We want to be sure that we are not giving labels. We are not diagnosticians, and we cannot assume what is actually happening inside of a child. We can make observations and we can say, this is what I've observed factually, and leave it at that. Being a partner to the parent means that there is no judgment in that. Meeting everybody where they are in that moment without saying, oh my gosh, I wish they would do X, Y, Z because it would just make everything so much better. You really don't know if it would make everything so much better. In your experience, it has provided an improvement. Sharing that information with the parents is not helpful because they can feel judged and they can feel as if you are not hearing them or seeing their efforts. Use jargon or technical language. 100% steer away from any sort of technical or language that we use inside of a classroom. One of the words that gets used within my background, which is a Montessori background, is the word normalized. And parents would go, what? Normalized? All that means, normalized means that a child is behaving and following the flow of the classroom as it goes. That's it. They're following the rules. That is a normalized classroom. Avoiding that, as a Montessorian, I had to make sure that I avoided that normalized word because it would set parents like, oh, my child isn't normal. So being aware of how sometimes words that we use that don't have an emotional impact on us could have an emotional impact on a parent. Specialized terms and phrases, if used, should be clearly defined for the parents so that they know exactly what you mean. Dismiss parents' concerns. We need to listen to the parents and we need to have conversations with them, and we also need to be mindful of our own time constraints. So if you need to stop a conversation with a parent, it is okay to say, I've only got 5 more minutes to listen because I need to go do something else. That makes them still feel heard and without dismissing what their concerns are. Saying, don't worry about it, or oh, it's fine, or oh, it's okay. That is telling the parent that what they're feeling and thinking is inaccurate or not appropriate. And that can be very hurtful to a parent and very damaging to the relationship. Number 4, don't blame. There's no blame. These are the facts. This is what's happening within the community. The child needs to get to this place, and this is what we need to get them there. Blaming anyone is unhelpful and unproductive. It's really about a problem-solving mindset and a growth mindset. No one is at fault. No one is guilty. We're all doing the best that we can. If there were some missteps or if there was something that happened that caused anything to happen, that's not important. What's important is how do we grow from here? Don't provide a diagnosis or a label. We are not diagnosticians, and it is also not really important unless you're doing research. And if once you have the label, you can do research and you can look for strategies for certain behaviors. Because for us, our job is to create an environment that meets the needs of the child. The needs of the child are varied on a spectrum between typical and atypical. And meeting those individual needs is what's important. That's what we're here to do, is to meet individual needs. What is the need of the child? You might find it helpful for you to have a label or a diagnosis, But offering that, unless you're a diagnostician, unless you have years of experience, unless that's your role in the relationship with the parents, steer clear. Provide false reassurances. This is a tough one because we do want to be positive and we do want to be helpful for the children, and we do want to let the parents know that everything is going to be okay. But if they don't meet the needs, if you say, oh, everything's going to be fine, they're going to get over this in this period of time, and then when that doesn't happen, that leads to a lack of trust with that parent. They will also bank on that, and they will also hold on to that. And if that doesn't happen, they could then turn that and blame you for that not happening. And then that breaks down the relationship even further. Also being very honest about what's happening. This is what we're working for, and we're hopeful that we will be able to get to that point. That is better than saying it's going to be fine. We are hopeful that we will be able to do this. This is the strategies that I'm using to be able to meet this particular need. I'm working on it. And also talking about what's happening at home. How is it going at home? And if they say that they're still struggling at home, telling the parent not to worry, they're going to worry. This is their child. Say, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying, and it sounds really tough. And let's keep working. If you want to try a different strategy, let me know, and we'll come up with a time to talk, or maybe we can refer this out to someone else to get you some additional support, or maybe a different tool to use in any particular situation.